Securities and financial planning offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing.
Welcome to Planning for Win, Financial Guidance in Life. I'm Kevin Pinkley, and thank you for joining us today. When I work with clients, we work with them to provide a retirement, an income during retirement, help plan for college, help provide a legacy for when they're no longer here. And I've noticed one of the things that sometimes we neglect are some important things that can happen to us during our life. And one of those things are to neglect our physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. And that can happen at any time during the year, but sometimes that happens at certain times of the year. And today we have Matt Connor joining us today, and he's going to talk about 5 simple things, 5 simple ways to help us beat holiday burnout. Thank you for joining us today, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Matt, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how the listeners could contact you?
You bet. Well, I'm the head coach and founder of Coach Connor Consulting. A few years ago, I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up and got out of a 25-year marketing career and opened up Coach Connor Consulting. In which I am a professional speaker, motivational speaker, and a life coach, and sometimes a career coach also. The best way to reach me is via email, and my email directly to me is Matt, M-A-T-T, at coach-connor.com.
Thank you, Matt. Well, you mentioned life coach, and sometimes when people hear the term life coach, that means different things to different people. What specifically do you help clients with, and what areas do you work in?
You know, it's funny, sometimes whenever I tell people that I'm a life coach, they get this kind of glazed over look in their eyes, and they kind of just go like, oh, okay, whatever that is, and then they just kind of move away. So sometimes I tell people what I do is I coach the walking dead. Mm-hmm. And you know, what I find is that a lot of people, more than not, can relate to this scenario. You get up in the morning, you go to work, you come home, you eat something maybe, then you do some more work or get on the computer on Facebook, watch TV, and then you go to bed, or you do more work. Right. And then you go to bed and rinse and repeat. And people are living for the weekend, but then by the time the weekend comes, you know, usually by Saturday evening or at the most Sunday morning, they're already dreading Monday, and you know they're missing out on a high percentage of their week of just being miserable. So what I do is, as a life coach, I help people get more fulfillment out of their daily lives. I help them raise their level of happiness. What people don't understand is that they're in control of that. They think that you know, well, it's their boss's fault, or it's, you know, traffic's fault, or their kids, or their spouse, or whoever. It's what they give all the control away to somebody else. So what I try to do is I try to coach people to take back the control and quit letting others influence their, you know, quality of life.
Well, you just mentioned something that everybody can relate to, okay? You can relate to the grind in the morning, going to work, the traffic, maybe issues with family. Okay, thank you. If we were talking about how to avoid burnout in general and to influence our life, and maybe specifically during the holidays, where would you like to start with that?
Well, specifically in the holidays, you know, I mean, you can look at the research that's been done, and the statistics show that, you know, suicide rates are the highest during the holidays. divorces between marriages or with marriages are the month of the year that has the highest divorce rate is January, when people file for divorce. The holidays are just stressful. You know, you got to make sure that, you know, the kids are getting the Christmas that they deserve, and you've got family coming over, or you've got to go to the family, or, you know, and some of that family you may not really care to spend time with, but you have to. And, you know, there's the in-laws, and got to cook a turkey, got to cook a ham, you know. There's just, it's in our already high stress, high pressure lives, it just compounds itself, is what the research shows. It compounds itself on during the months of the holidays, basically through, you know, Thanksgiving through Christmas.
So when we're supposed to be enjoying maybe some downtime, we're still experiencing everything that we did last month, but maybe even more so. And then you just, I'll use the term, you feel like you don't have control anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I mean, I can remember. This is not a new phenomenon. I mean, I can remember my mother, whenever I was a child, a younger child, my mother being so stressed out about, you know, making sure that everybody got fed, you know, well, or that the turkey came out right, you know, or just whatever. You know, she couldn't find the right gift for somebody, or whatever. And I mean, I can vividly remember my mom, you know, having visible stress during that time. You know, everybody wants it to be happy, and they want it to be perfect, and they don't really savor the moment and stay in the moment and enjoy where they are at the time.
Well, when you mention these things that people are experiencing and feeling, does it tend to be certain people or certain occupations? So who does this affect?
Well, you know, I think burnout, it does not discriminate, and it's very sneaky. It comes. I think everyone is susceptible to it, but the people that I find that are most susceptible to it are what we call high achievers, and you know, these are people that, you know, want to succeed. They're the people that are out working. You know, working their butts off and putting in extra time at work, or taking on volunteer opportunities, you know, volunteering in their community. The people that have trouble saying no, you know, that always stretch themselves and try to do a little bit more, whether it's for their own gain or for someone else's. These are the types of people that are most susceptible to burnout, because they stretch themselves so thin, and they rarely, if ever, take the time to reboot and refresh themselves. You know, I saw something on the computer the other day on Facebook or something that said it had a picture of a phone being plugged in to recharge, and it says, you know, you recharge your phone every day. You know, when was the last time you recharged yourself? And so that's, you know, I thought that was pretty appropriate.
Well, so is it, when you mention the high achievers, is it tend to be the people, you know, the Superman, the Superwomen, you know, the people that think, I can never have enough on my plate, if you will, those types of people that I can always do something more, I can always do something better, that type of person?
It is those would be, you know, highly susceptible to it. You know, they would be what I would consider prime candidates for burnout, because they just never stop. But even I would define high achiever as just, you know, your average Joe that gets up and, you know, goes to work and does their best every day, and, you know, tries to come home and be a good parent, you know, and spend time with their kids, and you know, coaches the t-ball team, or volunteers at church and stuff like that. It's all a matter of how much do you have on your plate. It's not necessarily just the go-getters in business, because there's stress involved in many of our activities throughout our week. You know, you can be volunteering for an organization that you care deeply about and be very stressed out about, you know, whatever it is that you're doing for them. You can be very stressed out about, you know, the time that you spend with your kids, if you're helping coach or do something with their activities. I know you know this. You've got two kids. I've got two kids. Just getting them to practice, and to their activities throughout the week is just crazy. And then homework, and if you're just trying to keep up, burnout can grab you.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So we talked about the adults and the high achievers and parents. Do you notice this happening maybe with the kiddos and young adults as well?
Absolutely. And this is, I think this is a fairly new phenomenon. I think kids have always had stress in their lives, teenagers, probably from middle school and high school. There's always drama with kids. But what we find now is that because of, every kid has a smartphone, and they have access to the messaging and the content that is out there for adult consumption, and maybe they don't understand it, but it does stress them out. Yesterday was election day, and it's amazing how many young middle school and high school students were stressing out about what was going to happen in the election. I wasn't like that because I didn't care.
Right,
and I
right.
really I wasn't exposed to it other than, it was on the TV whenever we were watching the news. But now it's everywhere. The access to information is a big contributor to the stress that we have in our daily lives.
Gotcha. Well, it makes sense. Well, what would be one item or one action or one activity that we could do to help counter this stress, this burnout? What would be something that we could do to help balance ourselves during this time?
Well, I'll tell you what if you go to your doctor, say you're feeling a little bit stressed, maybe you're even having, some anxiety, episodes or attacks or something like that, and you say, man, I want to go see my doctor, or you're at your annual checkup and you mention to them, I've been pretty high strung lately, and, this or that, and maybe your blood pressure's up or something your doctor tells you. And if you go to your doctor, or if you just Google, I'm burnt out or I'm stressed out, you're going to get these answers, okay? You're going to be told, well, you need to get more sleep. You need to eat better. You need to get some exercise. And you need to learn how to say no, not take on so much. And then this one, the last one, is my favorite of, well, you need to take some time off, and it's amazing because let's just real quick go through these, Okay, so you need to get more sleep, okay? Well, I don't know too many people that are in pretty much any business, that any professional business that is not a part-time job that works just 40 hours a week. It's very rare. Most of us are working 50, 60 plus hours a week just to get by. And we're not making, a lot of us aren't making any more money because of that. Some people are, but it's just what the job entails, It's not a 9-to-5 deal anymore. So, we're expected to work, so we got to get up early and, and show up early and stay late. If you have kids, the kids have activities and things like that. Heaven forbid you spend some time with your spouse, or watch a TV show or something like that. There's just constant, there's a constant pressure to do more. So that impairs our sleep. So because we don't get to bed on time, very rarely do people get 8 hours a day. Those that do, that's incredible. But it also, the stresses of the day affect the quality of our sleep. So we're actually not getting as much rest as the body requires, and that will add up and take its toll. So it's difficult. It's spot on. Yes, we all need to get our sleep, but it's difficult to do.
Well, I wanted to mention something. So when you talk about coming home and trying to relax and trying to get some sleep. Well, most people bring their work home.
Exactly.
So, and I understand why, because sometimes it's like, hey, I've been at the office all day. I need a break. I'm going to bring it home. I'm going to kick off my shoes. I'm going to prop up my feet, maybe have a refreshing beverage, and I'm going to work on some work at home. But then there's things that you really should be working on at home, or maybe not working on, and you're still bringing your work home. And so what you escaped at the office until the time you got home, you brought home with you.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And you're not the only one that pays the price for that.
Yeah,
You know.
okay.
So get more sleep. You know, the next one is get exercise or eat better. That's what we said. The second one was you need to eat better. Well, you know, the diet industry is not a multi-billion-dollar industry because they all work. You know, people get on a diet and it works for them, and you know maybe they drop the weight, but then it's hard to keep up. You know, it's hard to stay consistent with that. The fast food, you know, for some reason it tastes so good. You know, it tastes better than a lot of the healthy stuff. It's also fast food. I don't have as much time, so I just swing in, get a burger or some chicken strips or whatever your favorite is, and go on. You know, I don't have time to cook a healthy meal because I got to take the kids to practice. I got to do this. I got to do that. You know, it's constant. So it's about time. The third one is exercise. I mean, I don't know about you, but you know, how many people out there have a gym membership that they've had for, you know, years and years that's
Sure.
just collecting dust, you know? Everybody gets that New Year's resolution in January. They sign up for the gym membership, and 2 to 3 weeks in, they stop going again because of time. It's difficult. Lack of discipline, lack of willpower, and lack of time. It's hard, you know? Well, I could get up early and go to the gym. Well, okay, then you're sacrificing the sleep. You know, I mean, it's which one do you want to do? Is it the chicken or the egg kind of thing? Learn how to say no. You know, my wife used to tell me, Matt, you don't have to say yes to everything that everybody asks you to do. And so after her mentioning that several times, I made a list of everything that was on my plate. And I just handed it to her. And I said, okay, what would you like me to take off? Which of these items would you, you know, I'm coaching both kids in soccer. This was years ago when they were younger. I'm coaching both soccer teams. I can take one of them off. I just won't coach you because I don't like you as much. I mean, you know, come on, that's not going to fly. Am I going to stop volunteering for the charity that I volunteer for special needs kids? You know, oh yeah, well I'm getting burnt out, guys. So you know, I got to take a break. You know, these kids are battling challenges every day. How does that make me feel? You know, what does that do to my psyche? Everything we do is important. You know, so. You know, saying no is tough. Don't get me wrong. You have to. You know, you don't have to accept every volunteer opportunity or every job, you know, task at work or something like that. But it is a very difficult thing for us to say no. And then the last one, my favorite one, is take some time off. You know, yeah, I'm going to take a week-long vacation, you know, in the Bahamas. Okay, well, I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm about to take a long vacation, even just a short vacation, the week before I'm taking that time off, I am super stressed out and working extra hours because I'm trying to get everything just right so that I can leave and enjoy my vacation, okay? And then the problem is, most of us, whenever we go on vacation, we have our cell phone with us. We're connected. We're not totally off the clock. The emails are still coming. You know, it's very difficult for us to put that down. And not look and not check because those things are important. And I'm just going to take a few minutes. Well, that's creeping into your recharge time, you know, and you're stressing out because you get that bad email or, you know, something went wrong back at the office. And then you get back from vacation and then what's waiting on you? And you're stressing about that before you even leave vacation. What's waiting on you? You know, 3,000 emails, unopened emails or something like that, you know, and all the fires that you're going to have to put out. You know, it's good to take vacations, but man, it's hard, you know?
Well, I just noticed something. So you mentioned these 5 things, and when you got to 4 and 5, these are all connected. They're not independent.
Exactly.
So we were talking about vacation. Well, if you go on vacation, but you don't say, no, I'm not going to be available, or I'm not going to be available all the time, okay, those are two things working against you right there. So personally, I've noticed that if I tried to take a vacation and didn't put limits on work while I'm on vacation, then things were more hectic during vacation than when I was at work, because I was trying to enjoy a vacation personally and with the family, and then I'm trying to squeeze in work, and you didn't place limits on, I mean, sometimes you just have to be available, but if you don't place limits on when, you're really trying to enjoy something, and then you get that email or phone call. And I'm not talking about an emergency. I'm talking about something that could have waited the next week.
Yep.
Someone else could have handled, or maybe with a little planning, you told people in the office or the clients of like, hey, I'm not going to be available these hours or these days. If it's an emergency, you can always call me. But if it's not, I'm not going to be available. And you know what? People respect that, and they don't call you with minor issues that could have waited a few days or someone else could have answered. But it did. It just hit me that all these are connected, and if you try to do one without the other, it's not going to work out. So you can eat right all you want, but you still have to have some exercise. Okay? Or you can exercise all you want, but if you don't eat right, okay, your doctor's going to say, hey, I know you're hitting the gym and you're running and doing yoga or whatever else, but what you're putting in your body is garbage. Okay, so it's not working, pal. You got to do all of them at the same time somehow.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's not just about you. Those things, while it has a dramatic effect on your physical health, but what most people don't realize is what it does for you mentally. Those things all drain on you, and that's where, like I said, that's where burnout is sneaky, because you'll think, well, I'm just feeling stressed, and that's just the way life is. You know, that's just the way it's supposed to be. Well, we've been educated and trained for decades, probably a century now, in this country that, you know, well, this is just the way life is. You're supposed to go to work, and you're supposed to do this, and you know, work at the job that you maybe like if you're lucky. You know, the surveys show that, you know, 60 to 70% of people don't love their job. Actually don't like their job. It's even fewer that love their job. So, you know, these things all creep up, and next thing you know, what you thought was just normal and stressful, and you end up getting to take some time off, but it's not paid time off because you're in long-term disability, because you had to check yourself into a hospital. I have a good friend that one day she woke up and she had shakes all over her body from head to toe. Her voice was even shaking so bad, and she couldn't figure out what it was. She goes to the doctor, they run test after test after test. They couldn't find anything that was wrong with her. So what do you think they said that it was? Well, it's just stress. You need to relax. Well, yeah, guess what? She ended up having to relax for 6 weeks. Actually, I think it was actually 3 months that she was out, where she was not allowed to go to work because A, she couldn't drive, and she really had trouble communicating because her voice was so shaky. She couldn't do her job physically because of being burnt out, because she was so stretched so thin. You know, it shows up in all kinds of different ways. Another good friend of mine had a stroke sitting at her desk. You know, she got to take a lot of time off, forced her into an early retirement.
Well, and I think some of the problem is, personally, we don't want to admit that we have limits. And that maybe we perceive having a limit makes you weak, but I don't think it does. It means, hey, I understand the situation I'm at, and in order for me to be okay and my loved ones to be okay, I need to know where that is, hopefully not get to it, and do some things to counter that, because everybody has a limit and it affects everyone differently. So eventually there's an outcome like you have been discussing, which is terrible, but along that way, it's affecting our job performance.
Absolutely.
It's affecting our personal relationships, whether we have a friend, a loved one, the kiddos, our spouses. So it's not just, hey, something happened when I woke up the next morning. I mean, there's usually some history there, and people notice that along the way.
Yep.
And it changes relationships, and sometimes, usually, it's not for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows itself. There are symptoms along the way. There are symptoms along the way that, people just think are just, well, it's just the way it is. I didn't sleep well. I haven't slept well for a week, or I haven't slept well for a month. I never sleep well. Some people are like that. I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the solution to this is, well, you need to go find a new job. By no means am I telling you that. Because, most people think, well, I need to find a new job because I don't want to get out of bed in the morning because I don't like the people that I work with. Well, I've got news for you. The crazy people that you work with in your office, their cousins work across the street at the place that you might get a new job at. The grass may be greener over there because it's full of manure. I mean, there's crazy people and bad bosses and, all that kind of nonsense everywhere you go, So, if you're in an abusive or hostile work environment, then yes, you need to seek a new place to work. But that's not the automatic solution, and working for yourself. Oh yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to work for myself. Hey, speaking as an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, this is not for everybody. This is hard, well, I don't like sales. Well, guess what? If you're going to open up your own business, well, you better get to liking sales because you're the salesperson. Right. Well, I don't like bookkeeping and accounting. Well, guess what? You better get used to that because you're going to be the one to do it. You're in charge of everything. So it's not for everyone. But it really is amazing how people just ignore it, and then you wind up in a bad situation, I've got a list. I've done research on this subject for about 3.5 years now, talking to people, interviewing people, doing surveys and that kind of thing. And it is amazing how many people are like you said, afraid to talk about it. And the main reason that we're afraid to talk about it is because it shows weakness.
Okay.
And they're afraid that, well, if the wrong person hears that I'm burning out, like my boss or whomever, then they're going to think that I'm weak, and then I'm going to be the one to be laid off whenever they need to make cuts, or they're going to fire me, or I won't get that promotion, or something like that. We're always, we think that we're always being pushed to do more. And in some cases we are.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's helpful. We're at a point where we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue with Matt Connor and ways of dealing with stress and burnout. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Securities and financial planning offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing.
We're back. This is Planning for Win, Financial Guidance in Life, and I'm Kevin Pinkley, and we're continuing with Matt Connor. And today we're talking about how to deal with burnout and ways to combat that. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoying this.
Well, it's helpful. And sometimes people ask, well, Kevin, you're a financial advisor. Why in the world are you talking about stress and burnout and all the things that can go along with it? And what we see with our clients, ourselves, and other people is you can be financially successful and accomplished, but if you're not dealing with the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects in your life, well, that's only part of the issue. And in some cases, you can be financially successful, and then these things that can happen to us that affects our relationships and our health, and guess what? We're not here anymore. Literally, we've passed on, or our relationships are in such a mess because all we dealt with was the grind and getting ahead, and our quality of life suffers. So that's one reason we're talking about it, because it's important. And, I can bring people into a room and they can be financially successful, but if they didn't attend to the other issues in their life, you will notice them when you compare them to the people who are successful but have addressed these other issues that I think are equally important. There's a difference, and you can notice it in conversation, you can notice it physically, and you can notice it in the relationships that they have or they don't have. So it's very important, and I'm glad you're here, Matt.
It really is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Kevin. If money can solve a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve all of them. And some of the most, miserable people in the world, they don't have a financial worry in the world. But reaching that balance is that's the key. That's where the success really lies. So.
Well, we talked about some of the things that may be the things that we can do that we hear in the public or when we go to the doctor. I mean, what's some things that we can really address those issues, and what's your suggestion if people were to contact you? I mean, what are you going to have them do? What's their program? And I know it's different per individual, but generally, what are the things that we're talking about?
Right. The 5 things that we talked about that your doctor is going to tell you and that Google is going to tell you, those are all very, very important. Don't get me wrong. You got to exercise, you got to eat right, you got to get sleep, you got to take some time off, and you got to learn how to say no. Those are all very, very important. But they're not, those are pretty simple also. But if they were so simple and easy to do, we wouldn't have an epidemic of people, burning out and, freaking out at work and quitting jobs and just losing it, and all of the physical and mental ailments that people are suffering from these days. I think that there was a report out that more people are on antidepressants now than ever before. So this is a sign of the times. There is something going on out there. And so what I tell people to do whenever I speak to them about burnout or something like that, again, whenever I'm coaching an individual, each person is completely different, but the aspects and the ideas are all intertwined and pretty similar. The first thing that you need to do, the first step to combating burnout and stress in life, is you need to do a serious and honest self-evaluation, like some real, soul-searching kind of stuff. This is the most difficult thing of the 5 steps that we're going to talk about here today. This is the most difficult one, but it's also the most important one, because what I have found is that most people, they really don't know what makes them happy. They really don't know what they want in life. They think they know, and they'll give you an answer. Some people will give you the politically correct answer of, well, I want a happy and healthy family, and raise good children that are productive members of society, and have a happy marriage, and the blah 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 blah. And while that is true, that is what they want, but is that their driving force? Is that what gets them up in the morning? Most likely not. That's a pretty broad and not very specific thing. Some people are going to be very honest with you, and they're going to say, well, I want the corner office. I want to make, millions of dollars. I want to drive the nice car. I want to have the big house, and, that's what I want. But what many people find is that whenever they start getting professional success or financial success, that it's not really solving their problems. They're not any more happy than they were before. I mean, we've all been there. How many people have ever thought in their lives, man, if I could just get a $5,000 raise or get a job that paid me $5,000 more a year, man, I would just be on easy street. I would not have to worry about anything in the world. So you end up getting that promotion, and you get a $5,000 a year raise, and you see that extra money in your paycheck every 2 weeks. And what happens, literally, what happens within 2 to 3 months after getting that raise? You're like, well, I want another one. It's you always, the bar always raises.
Well, I can see why you mentioned that first step would be the hardest, that check or that evaluation or that look in the mirror, if you will, because most people would think, well, that's an attack on me, and they take it personally.
Exactly.
And that's not the process, correct? There's some things that you're doing really well, but there's some things you need to work on, but we got to talk honestly about them.
Yep.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not even that you have to talk to, another person about it. It literally is being honest with yourself. Most people really don't know what their definition of success is. I mean, honestly, what do you want out of life? What do you want? And most people really they don't really have a firm grasp on what a fulfilled life is for them. And whenever you're doing that self-analysis, and like you said, looking in the mirror and being completely honest with yourself, it's difficult because you're not going to like some of the answers that you come up with, and you're going to fight it, And it's a never-ending process, by the way. But once you start the ball rolling, that's whenever you're going to open yourself up to be able to start taking the next steps to having a more fulfilled life and being happier.
Yeah. And we're not talking about being perfect, because no one is.
Absolutely
We're
not.
just talking about making some improvements.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And really just like getting a direction. Well, I thought that I wanted to be, I used to think I wanted to be an advertising executive. That's what I thought I wanted to be. And I mean, that was my passion. And that's what I majored in school. And I went out and went into the advertising and marketing business, and I did it for 25 years. And I was good at it, but I was miserable, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was real easy to say, well, it's the job, it's the company, it's my boss. And so I just kept changing jobs, and, and next thing you know, I'm, 6 months after the honeymoon's over at the new job, there I was again. I was miserable, and I couldn't figure out why. It took a lot of, self-reflection and some things to happen for me to really be honest with myself and take the time and put the effort in to figure out what I wanted to do and what would really make me happy. So, and I mean, and I can tell you that the price tag on that, it's insurmountable. I mean, there is no price tag.
I bet.
Because it's just amazing. I mean, it literally is. It's a night and day effect. So, the second step that we move on is also it's also very difficult. It's manage your thoughts. Okay.
Okay. Well, that would be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So now notice I said manage your thoughts, not control your thoughts. Some people think that you can control the thoughts that pop into your head. I personally do not believe that whatsoever, because you're for example, maybe you're in church, or you're at a funeral or something, very serious, where you need a wedding, a funeral, something like that, where you need to be focused on the important thing that's going on in front of you, right? And but you're thinking about, man, I wonder what the Texans are doing. I wonder how the Texans are doing right now. Are they winning? Or something like that. And you didn't. It's not what you didn't want to think that. It just popped into your head. So a very good friend of mine, she gave me a way to think about how you manage your thoughts. If you picture, and it's a little crazy, a little corny, and fun, but if you picture inside your brain, there is an infinite amount of little microscopic monkeys with waiter tuxedos on, and each of them has a silver platter. And under that silver platter is a thought, just a single thought, okay? And they're in line, and they all are going up to the part of the brain, the reptilian part of our brain, where thoughts come in and makes an immediate decision. Yes, no, fight or flight. That's where this happens. And the monkey opens up the platter and says, what do you think of this one? To the brain. And the brain does one of three things. It says, yes, this is good information. Thank you very much. I'm going to take that and I'm going to act on it right now. For example, if someone were to walk into this room right now with a machine gun and a ski mask on and said, everybody get on the ground, we would think this is good information, and what would we do? We would get on the ground, correct? That's good information. We act on it immediately. The second thing that the brain may do with one of those is the monkey shows him the thought and says, what do you think of this? And they say, and it's, the brain says, or that part of the brain says, you know what? This is above my pay grade. I'm not really sure. Maybe this might be something valuable. I'm going to send you to the guys upstairs and let them deal with it. And this is where things like, do we want to buy a house? Should I take that job offer? Do we want to have kids? Do we want to get a dog? What color car do I want to buy? These are all the things of how those go, okay? And this is where we think about and strategize and weigh the pros and cons about an idea or a thought. And the third thing that the brain could do with a thought is say, you know what, this is of no use to me whatsoever, and just says, you're out of line, monkey, go away. Now, the problem is that sometimes those monkeys, they get back in line and they cut in line, and that thought keeps coming. And sometimes we act on it, and it was a mistake, you know? Should I order that second cheeseburger, you know, or something like that? It's, you know, we're not perfect.
So what I'm hearing is it's normal. Don't beat yourself up when certain things pop into your head, whether it's the appropriate time or not, or if it keeps reoccurring. But as you said, you have to manage those thoughts.
That's right.
And prioritize them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, you don't punish yourself for the thoughts that you have, okay? You have no control over that, okay? Think about the influences that we are bombarded with every day, from, you know, advertising to people that we see on the street, people at work, things that we hear on the radio. I mean, it is just nonstop. We're barraged with information. Well, those all affect the type of thoughts that come into our brain. It's what you do with the thought that matters, and that's where the discipline and the difficulty, comes in. So you really have to focus. And if you find yourself having thoughts that aren't really serving you very well, well, you need to manage those and really try to keep things on a positive tip instead of negative. You can't punish yourself for being negative. We're wired to go negative. I mean, from the beginning of time, being negative is what has kept us alive as a species for thousands of years, okay? Two cavemen walking down the trail, there's something in the bush over there moving. One caveman says to the other one, hey, there's something in that bush over there. And the other caveman says, well, okay, let's get back in the cave, because it's probably something bad. He went negative, and that's how they stayed alive. They didn't go running to check something out. Well, we live in a different world now. We don't have to worry about every time we step out of our cave that something's going to eat us.
Time goes by quick.
Yeah.
Well, so I wanted to mention something. So sometimes we hear that, oh, I can do that myself, or I don't need anyone's help. And I'll go back to one of the hobbies that I used to have was cycling, road cycling. And when you look at people who are professionals and at the top of their game, if you will, they have people around them to help with different issues. So if you're a professional road racer, you have a nutritionist, you have a mechanic, you have a coach to help you deal with stresses mentally and physically, you have a doctor. So people who are honest with themselves have a coach, and having a life coach is no different. And everybody's situation is different. They need different things. There's some general things that we need, but what would be an example of why we need a life coach?
Well, why you need a life coach? It's real simple. I mean, you're exactly right. The elite in their field, take a pick, they have coaches. Why do you need a life coach? Something has changed in your life. You want something to change in your life. Nothing has changed in your life. Something happened. Something good happened. Something bad happened. I have clients that have engaged with me to be their coach. One dealing with a divorce, coaching them through that. The other dealing with some issues at work, getting through, coaching them through that. others figuring out what they want to do, what is their purpose, finding, how to get more out of life. It really is on an individual basis, but why wouldn't you have a coach? If you want to be the best that you can be, having someone there to give you guidance, and one thing that you need to know about coaching is that we don't have coaches don't have the answers. You do, the client. Clients have all the answers. The coach's job is to guide them and lead them to discover it themselves. And it's an amazing feeling that whenever you do that, because there is some ownership. You get to take credit for it as the client. Mm-hmm. So, and before we have to drop off, I want to mention the other 3 things that you can do to avoid burnout real quick. These are a little bit easier, but the third one is to embrace the contrast. That means that life is an adventure, and on adventures, sometimes bad things happen. You got to go with the flow and absorb it, find the good in it. There's something good will come of everything, okay? And the fourth thing is the word enough. That, you know what? You are where you are because of the decisions that you made previously, all trillion of them, okay? Embrace that. Own it. If you had a bad day, take responsibility for it. You'll do better tomorrow. If you had a good day, take credit for it. You drive your bus. If you don't like where you're at, go somewhere else. And that doesn't mean go find a new job, go find a new spouse, go find a new family, go find a new place to live. That means your mindset. Fix it. Stay positive. And the last thing, by the way, one more thing. The last thing is that my philosophy in life is that everything doesn't happen for a reason. Everything happens for a good reason. And find the good in it. You can find good in anything.
Well, thank you, Matt. This is very helpful today. We're definitely going to have you back on, and we're going to continue with the conversation. And I wanted to thank the listeners for listening today, for financial planning for win financial guidance in life. And you can listen to us the last Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. And you can check us out online at Lone Star Community Radio. Thank you.
Securities and financial planning offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing.